Hello, in this video we're going to look at how to optimize your testing when you're working with a variable pay template. It's something that is very, very important to understand how you can quickly set up a variable pay template and set it up in a way that when you run the import employee history from Employee Central, you do it as efficiently as possible. So there are several aspects to this video, but the first one that I'll start with is start with the most important, which is the employee history in variable pay. So here we have, so in this 2021 incentive planning template, when I navigate to edit employee history, this is the data that has been configured in the standard in the background element in the succession data model to retrieve data from Employee Central. I will not go into the details of how you set it up because this is part of the official variable pay training, but I will explain a few things on this. The first thing is that when you test, you want to be able, when you test the integration and retrieving the fields, you want to be able to, once you define a new mapping on a column to a field in Employee Central, you want to be able to save as much time as possible, and instead of running the employee history from Employee Central on the whole employees database, um, you want to be able to run it on a couple of employees only so that you can test that the data mapping is correct and validate your mappings really quickly. So here you can see this is a test environment with only a limited number of employees, but some implementations for customers um, already have dozens of thousands of employees in the database, if not hundreds of thousands. So running an employee history job on that large amount of employees like that, 20,000, can take up to an hour or 2 hours sometimes. So it's really important to be able to filter and only retrieve the employees that a couple of employees to test with. And this is something that over the years I've realized that a lot of people don't know how to set up that feature very well. So that feature that was going to allow you to filter and only select a few employees is called, I call it the filtering job of under Employee Central settings, but the official name of that rule, that records rule, is the Global Eligibility Rule. So as you probably know, when you have a ECVP integrated template, you need employee history records eligibility rule here. So if we click on this rule, it's probably very straightforward. It's probably only listing a couple of bonus plans, or actually no, only retrieving records for people who are active. So this rule, as it says in the description, determines the rows that are pulled for variable pay incentive calculation. So it's an inclusion rule in the sense that it starts from nobody's records are eligible unless you are defining this rule and your employee's status of the record is active during the fiscal year. So what we're going to see now is how you can filter among this rule using the global eligibility rule to only retrieve a couple of user IDs. And the reason why it's important to put it here instead of here is because if you put it here, yes, in the end result, you will only get that one person, but the speed of the job will not be improved because this rule here always runs on the full employee database. So it doesn't matter whether you add an end condition to this rule and say is equal to active and is user ID is this. In the end, you will only get this one user's records. However, it will still take 2 hours if you have 20,000 employees in the database. So using this enable global eligibility rule here that we're going to set to yes, we're going to filter among the records that are retrieved here on a specific user ID. And I think with that example, you will understand how invaluable this rule is for variable pay. So the first thing to do is, if you don't have one created here, you're going to copy the one, click on eligibility rule details, and then do a take action and copy this rule. And you can call it MC for model company, but because this is a model company environment, so you can do MC filtering rule. That's usually how I call it. Actually, we should respect the naming convention of the other rule and say variable pay history filtering rule and copy. And in the description, I would edit the description, say filters among records retrieved by the main records rule. And then all we're going to do here is add a specific user ID. So if we don't know the specific user ID, we can always go back to, so keep this pop-up open in the here, and then use the screen to go to edit employee history. And if we only want to get one employee, we can find the user ID here if we've already ran the job the first time. If not, we can always go to the employee's profile and find the user ID. Or a third alternative would be export the user directory file. So you select the ID and you put it in the rule. I'm going to change the criteria to be, you can leave it on job information and go navigate to the bottom, and you should find a field called user ID, and you paste the user ID that you got, and then click on save at the bottom. So again, the reason why we put it in the filtering rule and not in the main record rule is because if we put it in the main record rule, it will not save us time when we run the employee history. And every time we will run the employee history, as an outcome, we'll only get a couple records for this user, but it will take 2 hours. So we want it to take 3 minutes, and that's how you do it. So you go, once you've created your rule, which we just did, you have to refresh the page and then select your new rule, which is here, this one. And then you can actually select a specific effective date for that rule. Typically, we align this date with the template's effective date, which I believe in this case is February 1st. So in American format, this is 02/01/2021. And now that we have this, we're going to filter. Save, and then launch an employee history job. Okay, so we have it saved here, and then we're going to go to import employee history from Employee Central. Actually, I like to delete everything first before I run a fresh import from Employee Central. In reality, when you run a fresh import, it will override what you had, but I like to see that there's no records left before I run my job. Same thing for compensation statements. I like to recall them before I run these jobs. So it takes a few seconds to delete all the records. So I like to refresh here until it shows as deleted, which is like a red message. Yeah, usually it takes only a couple seconds. Sometimes it takes longer because maybe the job gets queued on the server, but it should be fast. And if not, I'll give it a couple more tries. Usually it's only a couple seconds. Okay, well, never mind. Let's go ahead and run a full employee history now. So as I said, it will override this anyways. So it doesn't matter whether we wait or not. So Here, you're going to uncheck import only change records because we're running a fresh, we're taking a fresh look at Employee Central based on the latest changes we made to the eligibility rule. You don't need this setting because, well, you can leave it checked, but there are no completed forms. And always check this one because, as you probably know, if you've taken the variable pay training before you launch variable pay worksheets, you have to have run bonus calculation, which can be done either manually here or as a job that gets automatically triggered after you run employee history from Employee Central here. So hit process. The most important is the first one. Leave this one unchecked. The first one and the last one. Last one always check, first one always blank. And now you will see how fast this is going to run. Go to monitor compensation jobs. Well, it looks like there are some jobs issue on this demo environment, but once we see the job showing up here under monitor compensation jobs, you will see that from the moment it starts showing in the queue to the moment it's completed, it will take only a few seconds. So while the server is processing probably the jobs that get the priority here for this demo environment, which it's something common. I've seen this behavior before. It doesn't happen on actual servers, customer servers, only on these environments. But until this is done and my job gets triggered, um, I will pause the recording here. Okay, so it looks like the server is processing the jobs again. And yes, here we have our Employee Central History processor job. So it took about 5 minutes for the job to start showing, which in a normal server customer environment doesn't, there's no delay, it shows right away. So we just saw that it showed up as in progress. So with the filtering we used, we're expecting it to last, maximum couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes at the very max. Whereas if we didn't have that filter, it would scan the whole SuccessFactors employee database, and it can, in that case, it can take up to, like I said at the beginning, sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours for 30,000 employees. So when you're testing, it's an incredible tool to master so that you build your configuration in as little time as possible. So what we're seeing here is that we have in provisioning in company settings, there's a setting under the variable pay that that I recommend using, which is a setting to create subjobs. You can set up to 5 subjobs, and I recommend turning that on, setting that to 5, so that because it saves you a lot of time as well. So here you can see completed, completed, completed. So it started at 9:10 and it's 9:11 and it's almost completed. So we have to wait for this one to finish running before we can go ahead and test that all the records have been retrieved for this only for that one employee. Okay, completed. So let's wait just one more seconds. We're going to see a new job get triggered automatically at the end of this process. There's another job because we checked that last box to say run bonus calculation. This is the job that gets triggered that runs bonus calculation and updates existing worksheets if there are existing worksheets. And so it's completed also. So let's close this and now let's check under edit employee history what the system retrieved from Employee Central for us. And so if you do search user, here you can see we only have this one user record for the person that we added to our filtering rules. So incredibly useful tool. And when you work on very complex customer requirements, including, for example, how to only select specific employees that were terminated during the year with a specific even termination reason. The filtering rule on top of the speed of gaining uh, improving the speed of the job when you're testing is incredibly valuable to build eligibility rules. And when you master these two rules, the combination of them, you never need the manager form eligibility rules. Once you understand how they work together and you've tested it, you don't need this one to run. Basically, this one is the same than the one you'll find in salary review. It can either include or exclude, but it works at the whole user level. This one is way more granular, and the combination of both it works at the records level for a user, and yes, you can anything. I've never had a situation where you have to have this one on top of these two. I've always managed to build all of my eligibility rules for variable pay using these two, and never with this one. There may be some. I'm not saying there are no not there aren't there could very well be cases where this one is needed. I just haven't come across them yet. Um, there is a blog on my SAP blog profile that I wrote about using the filtering rule here for to filter on terminated employees, which is useful if you have customer requirements like that. I hope this was useful and looking forward to any questions or comments. Thank you.